What's going on, everybody? Hope you had a good weekend. In this video, I want to talk about Bitcoin. I want to talk about cleanspark as well. It looks like we're seeing a bit of a mixed day. Bitcoin's kind of pulling back a little bit, pulled back over the weekend. It looks like we're facing previous resistances back in 2021, the previous peaks back then. I do think once we can get back over 69, we are going to see all-time highs again. We are going to set new all-time highs, but it's a matter of breaking our previous halving cycle highs yet again. We're going to talk about why Bitcoin is better than any asset out there, and we're also going to talk about the spot Ethereum ETFs. So if you guys get something useful out of this, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. Check out the links down below for some free stocks and cryptos, and let's get started. So first off, looking at Bitcoin, we're looking at a slightly down day today. We did have a decent pullback over the weekend, went all the way down to roughly 65,000 before we pretty quickly recovered the next day. And look where we ended up. We ended up basically right at our resistance, our previous peak resistance right here. So as I said in the intro, I'm watching for a break of our previous resistance back towards these all-time highs that we already set before the halving. Now I think the reason this is different this time around is obviously because of the spot Bitcoin ETF buying pressure. While Bitcoin's not doing a whole lot today, slightly down I guess, a lot of the Bitcoin miners are actually having good recoveries today. Some are down, yes, but many are up, 3 to 5%. cleanspark's up roughly 4% today. So far, we're kind of in this choppy pattern. People were calling this a head and shoulders. cleanspark is trying really hard to hold this $15 area. We did bounce on it last week. And the next thing we need to see for cleanspark, if we're going to start breaking higher, we need to see a break of this previous resistance, this $21 area. If we can break that and head towards our 52-week high, I think we will continue to see cleanspark rally, but it is a matter of breaking these previous highs. And if we can't continue higher, if we find resistance here, we'll probably play out this pattern, this tightening pattern, and then we're either going to break down under this white line here, under this support, or we're going to break out of this descending resistance. So keep an eye on this potential pattern. It seems like we're going to start playing out. Watch how cleanspark responds right around this $18, $19 area. If it finds it as resistance, we're probably heading back to 15 to retest as support. But if we do break out of this as resistance, we're likely going to test our previous highs and potentially start creating new 52-week highs again. In my opinion, don't give up on the miners here. A lot of people are worried that the halvings coming around, these miners are going to absolutely tank. I believe for the most part, the market has priced in rewards getting cut. Sure, until the halving, we could see another couple pullbacks. But if Bitcoin starts rallying coming up to the halving, I do expect these miners to kind of rally along with Bitcoin. They will be a little weaker than Bitcoin more likely. But if Bitcoin does go up by the halving, I do expect the miners to go up slightly. And some people are saying there's going to be a pullback into the halving. We're kind of approaching this danger zone. And if that's the case, if Bitcoin does start tanking, of course these miners are likely to tank. Of course, cleanspark's likely to test this 15 area again. And who knows, maybe Bitcoin really falls and we have a chance to fill this gap here. But if Bitcoin does fall, any weakness on Bitcoin, you better be jumping on it. No matter how high the price of Bitcoin, there will only be 21 million. And Robert Kiyosaki, huge fan of gold, huge fan of oil. And check out what he's saying here. I love gold and silver. I own gold and silver mines. The problem with gold and silver is the higher the prices go, the more gold and silver is found. Same with oil. I own oil wells also. This is not true with Bitcoin. No matter how high the price of Bitcoin goes, there will only be 21 million ever. That's why I love Bitcoin. And this is true with basically any asset. If oil goes up in price, the oil companies will try to produce more oil to meet the demand. If we have a huge real estate boom, well, builders are going to build more buildings. They want a piece of that demand. They want a piece of that money flowing into their sector. Same can basically be said with any asset. You could say that land is capped. We only have one earth. And while we may be limited in the supply of land, you could always build upwards. You could build skyscrapers. You could build multi-story apartment complexes. You can build little condos and townhomes. So I guess in reality, land is the only thing you could probably compare to Bitcoin. It is set in supply, technically. But when you're limited on land from a horizontal standpoint, well, you can look vertically. The sky's the limit. And I don't know why, but this just, this gets me. Look at some of these comments. They are just, it's like people that just have no idea about Bitcoin. I don't know why they even read this article. That's the only perceived value for Bitcoin. It's finite supply. Although crypto appears to have no value whatsoever, like an imaginary poker chip with no casino. Is Bitcoin's finite supply the only perceived value? It's definitely a huge talking point, the fact that there's only 21 million Bitcoin, and the fact that every 4 years there's a halving, so there's a huge impact on the supply and demand mechanics there. But what if you want to transfer a large amount of money somewhere? You're going to be paying a lot more to transfer a large amount of money than to simply transfer Bitcoin from one wallet to another. What about the security of the Bitcoin network? What about the fact that it's so decentralized? It's very unlikely that anyone will have majority control. Now, of course, we have the point of scarcity, but what are some other great points of Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin can be heavily divided up by up to 8 decimal places. So even as it goes dramatically higher in value, you can still get 0.000000001 of a Bitcoin. How about acceptability? More and more people become familiar with crypto. Citizens of many countries are adopting them because of their financial systems failing them because of inflation. So I guess that kind of goes back to that 21 million set supply of Bitcoin. Even if Bitcoin was somewhat inflationary, even if it wasn't set in the amount, even if every year there is another 500,000 Bitcoin added to the 21 million supply every single year for eternity, Bitcoin would still be extremely valuable. How about portability? Well, Bitcoin can be used across borders. Anyone can basically send money to anyone else. You don't have to worry about exchanging one currency for another necessarily. And Bitcoin is backed by something. Bitcoin is backed by all the Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin, I guess you could now say, is backed by spot Bitcoin ETFs. There will always be an interest in Bitcoin. There will always be some buying pressure. And there will always be people that want to produce it because there's money to be made. And if Bitcoin holds no value whatsoever, then why would people spend roughly $18,000 to produce one Bitcoin, to mine one Bitcoin? This is just an estimate, but the point stands. It's not just something that can be created out of nothing, out of thin air. It does take money, it does take energy, it does take resources, computational power to produce Bitcoin. Now moving on, I do want to talk about spot Ethereum ETFs, and some US senators are pushing to stop approving spot crypto ETFs, so this may pose a threat to Ethereum. And lawmakers caution, however vulnerable Bitcoin may be to fraud and manipulation, markets for other cryptos are far more exposed to misconduct, and that retail investors would face enormous risks from exchange-traded products, referencing thinly traded cryptocurrencies or cryptos whose prices are especially susceptible to pump and dumps or other fraudulent schemes. Well, this happens across the market all the time. Small cap stocks, look at how much pump and dumps we see there. It's almost like they're always trying to save us from ourselves, right? We can't be trusted with our own money. Instead, let's have you invest in Ethereum and these other cryptos on random exchanges. We know what happened in 2022. So many exchanges went under. So are they really trying to save anybody? I do think that, if you could buy spot Ethereum on an actual brokerage backed with certain regulations and such and certain oversight, I would think that would be considered to be safer than to have to go on some random exchange and hope that they don't go under. I think it's all up front. They're all saying they're doing this to protect us. I do not think that's the case. Now we do have 10 spot Ethereum ETFs pending, and the first deadline is in May. And some are skeptical because Gary Gensler has consistently refrained from stating whether Ether is a commodity or a security. He has repeatedly stated that most crypto tokens are securities. However, as said by James Seifert, the SEC has approved Ethereum future ETFs. So again, Gary Gensler will not explicitly say whether Ethereum is a security or commodity, but in their action, by approving these Ethereum future ETFs, they're implicitly accepting those Ethereum futures as commodities futures. Now, do you guys think these senators have our best interests at heart? Or is there some ulterior motives there? And because of our recent hot data, inflationary data, PPI, CPI, all that's been going on, now for the first time this year, the market now only sees 3 interest rate cuts in 2024. And be ready because we are going to hear from the Fed this week. It's definitely going to be a volatile week. Now, we are supposedly facing the classic timing for a halving retrace. And in previous halving years, this danger zone produced corrections of up to 40%. And Rex Capital says Bitcoin slowly transitioning away from its pre-halving rally phase and into its pre-halving retrace phase. And despite consistent buying from these US spot Bitcoin ETFs, standard cycle phenomena is still playing out. And they see the potential, it looks like, for Bitcoin to head towards $35,000, potentially bouncing on this trend line we've been creating. And they're basically citing the 2016 cycle. There's a 40% correction right after the halving. However, in 2020, we saw this correction before the halving. And in the 2016 cycle, we saw a 40% drop, it looks like, after the halving. So I don't know. I don't really see a 40% pullback. I don't see us heading all the way to $35,000. Could we head into the 50s? Certainly, anything's possible. I mean, I guess we could head to the 35,000s, but in my eyes, I find it extremely unlikely. 50s? Sure, maybe. Mark my words, any of these pullbacks, you better be buying. This isn't financial advice, but you better be buying. But let me know, guys, do you think Bitcoin's going to see a serious retrace, something like 40%? Bitcoin is certainly volatile, and I guess it is possible. But right now, with all this buying pressure from the spot Bitcoin ETFs, with where we are in the halving, the fact that in about a month from now, the incoming supply of Bitcoin is going to be cut in half, well, any pullback from now till the halving, I think, is a golden opportunity to buy. And if you missed 2022, if you missed 2023, this might be the last chance to buy some cheap Bitcoin. But let me know what you guys are doing in the market. What Bitcoin miners are you picking up? It does look like Sphere 3D released their earnings a couple days ago. I totally missed it. So maybe I'll give you guys an upcoming video on that, or I'll at least talk about it on my Discord or something. Let me know what Bitcoin miner you want me to cover next. Thanks as always, guys, and I'll see you next time.